Good evening everyone, welcome to tonight's event. This is our second event for EdConnect and it is Placements, Pedagogy and Paperwork. I am Amelia, one of the strategy leaders for EdConnect, and we also have Ben, who is behind the scenes organising the technology side of tonight's event. So, are we sharing the PowerPoint? I can't see a PowerPoint.
First technical glitch of the evening. It's just sharing. Sorry.
Sharing, it's fine. We'll just. Oh, it's coming. Okay, so that's tonight's event, Placements, Pedagogy and Paperwork. So we are really proud of our network in numbers. So we have over 500 members across 11 countries, over 250 followers on Twitter and over 1,000 followers on Instagram, which is recently 1,000 followers, which we are really overwhelmed with. Our network is a values-led network, and we decided on 7 values which we feel embody our network. Tonight's focus is on well-being, so we hope you can see that reflected in our event. So a few of our topics that are being discussed tonight, we've got well-being, subject knowledge, behaviour, collecting evidence, research and assignment writing, SEND and inclusion, and increasing your teaching load. So we feel that these are going to help you continue in your teacher training course. Okay, so our first speaker for today is Matthew. So Matthew is in his 4th year of teaching and he's going to be talking to you all about subject knowledge.
Hello everybody, everyone out there. I am Matthew, I'm 29 and yes, I'm currently within my 4th year of teaching. I studied at Sheffield Hallam and qualified in 2016, got my position in 2017 and I've been at the same school ever since. I am currently teaching in year 1. I have taught in reception, year 1, year 2 and year 5 and moved back to year 1. There is a difference in the subject knowledge that you need depending on where you are within a primary school or even a secondary school. I feel as you go further up, done any early years or key stage 1, people sort of go at me here, but I feel that the subject knowledge becomes more in depth as you move up through the school. But I also feel in early years you need a broader range of knowledge to be able to understand the early years curriculum and everything that goes on there. So I have some sort of top tips, some ideas, and for me the best ways that I can work on my subject knowledge and that you can too. The first thing that I would say is, depending on where you are, whether you're in year 1, year 6, you're at secondary, it's important to know the year group before, know the year group you're in, know the year group that you're in after. So if you are a year 3 teacher, it's important that you know the key stage 1 curriculum, particularly the year 2 curriculum, so you know where they've just come from going through the SATs. You know the year 4 curriculum so that you know where you're getting them and where you need to get them to. And that's kind of on the flip side of that. I would also say you need to kind of understand where the curriculum progresses from early years through to year 6, because like me, you could be moved around, you could be placed anywhere, and you don't really have an opinion. You can sort of say your feelings, but obviously at the end of the day, if your head teacher feels that it's appropriate to move you, then you can. So it's just about knowing the journey, knowing where they're starting in early years and where they're going to as they move up into year 6. I would also say for me, since I first started, I've led a range of subjects. So when I first started, I obviously in my NQT year didn't have anything. And then as I qualified as an RQT, I took on religious studies. Then I moved on to history and on to geography. And I have now been leading for the last 2 years science and PSHE and wellbeing within school. I've also been fortunate enough to sort of work with other subject leaders within the school. So it's meant that my subject knowledge hasn't become stunted. I've not been stuck for 4 years with the same subject and kind of only working on that. I think being able to lead a range of subjects means that your subject knowledge is always growing and you're always learning new things in depth. I think a collaborative approach, so working with your TAs, your support assistants, and other teachers within the school is really, really important. My school is part of a trust, so we have 9 primary schools. So we are lucky enough that if there's something in my sort of school that maybe my subject knowledge is weak, or there's a subject that we're struggling with, we have other primary schools that we can go to and ask for support. So things like observing other teachers, getting them to come and observe you and giving an honest but respectful opinion. What could I do better? How could I improve it? Team teaching and working with more experienced teachers, peer-to-peer observations. In my school, we are going to be trialing teaching triads, where we'll be put into groups of 3. We'll each go away and we will talk about a given subject, and we'll have to research it, and then as the trio we'll come back and we'll feed back. So that's another way that we're going to be working on our subject knowledge, developing our own understanding, but also the way that we have to put it across to other people. So we have to have an in-depth understanding of that topic. Staff meetings, we have 1 staff meeting a week, and at least once a term each subject leader takes the focus and they give a PowerPoint or a presentation, or they carry out activities. They talk to lots of sort of all the staff and they discuss their subject. So my subject of science, I talk through how to use our scheme that we use, how to use the website, asking any questions, asking if there's anything that the staff need from me to be able to develop their science. So yeah, as a subject lead, I feel that you hone in on your subject, but also don't forget about everything else. There is lots and lots of free online training available. I know lots and lots of trainees last year, when they weren't able to go into placements and things like that, they took on free CPD online. I have been fortunate enough where my school has paid for me to go on maths training with the Maths Hub. I was part of the Rural Schools Alliance, so once a month we had an NQT and RQT meetup where you could discuss things with other teachers that were in the same stage in their career. I am currently doing the free Place to Be free mental health champion training, which is all just done online, and they're offering that. So you can get so much training and CPD to develop your subject knowledge online, which is brilliant. I think for me, one of the main ways during lockdown that I've been able to work on my subject knowledge has been through social media, through the Facebook groups. There are so many groups out there for specific year groups, for subjects, for key stages. Instagram, there's so many great teachers out there who are sharing their practice every day that you get a fresh perspective on things. You highlight different topics and you see how teachers are doing things in a different way. So for me, I prefer Instagram and Facebook over Twitter. I feel like Twitter gets a bit more political, but there are so many different platforms to get a fresh perspective, and it sometimes helps with making teaching the difficult concepts easier, because what I might not be able to understand, somebody else can, and that's me again, my terminology, my vocab, working on how I deliver it, my subject knowledge. So my key tips that I would say to take away from are: plan with plenty of time to spare, plenty of time in advance, so that if it's a topic you're not sure of, you can read about it beforehand, you can research. Then when you've done your planning, and then before you deliver the teaching, I would say read up again, watch videos, speak to people, CPD online, and wider communication within the teaching community using Instagram, using Facebook, Teach Meets, things like even EdConnect. There's so many people in here now that have different perspective, have different levels of experience on Instagram or Facebook and all the topics. And I just think use the community to develop your own subject knowledge.
Thank you, Matthew. I agree with everything that you've said, actually, and I've from my final placement, I found that you need to be aware of the curriculum expectations for the years below and above, because it helps so much for differentiation. So that
there's always a sort of a belief that year 6 is the year 6 teacher's responsibility, but it's not, because that's just a recap year. It's everything that's come before. So the journey and knowing the journey of the curriculum throughout is really important.
Thank you. Okay, so next up we've got Jess. Jess is a trainee teacher and a former learning disability nurse, and she's going to be talking to you about SEND and inclusion.
So yeah, my name's Jess and I am a trainee teacher doing my PGCE school direct route, and I'm based in a special needs primary school. I'm also a qualified learning disability nurse by background, so I've always had a passion for working with someone who has special needs, and when I qualify I really want to work in a special needs school. So you may be wondering why I have an interest in special needs. So I'm going to tell you a quick story that I used to support a young man with quite severe autism, and I would take him shopping each week. And I've always believed we can be there to increase their independence for when they get older and prepare them with these skills. So this young guy would never pick up anything in the supermarket or push the trolley. He'd only pick up a packet of Oreo biscuits. And he had potatoes on the list one day, and well, we choose our own potatoes from the loose potatoes, so why can't he? So one day I asked him to choose and I said, you do it. Like, go on, try. And that he said, no, you do it. So I did, and I modelled it. I put the potatoes in the bag. And from that day forward, the next week, I think he felt it was okay, and he was pushing the trolley, he was picking up, choosing his food. And that is something so little to us that we take for granted, but something so big for him. So if I can make a difference to him, I can do that to anyone. So yeah, I'm going to talk to you about SEND and inclusion. So like I said, I'm really passionate about this area. I've always believed that it's not about what the child can't do, it's about what they can do and getting them to that point. Everyone has the right to education. It just might have to be adapted to meet a particular need of a child. And that's in line with the Equality Act that we follow. So communication is a key area for working with children who have special needs. Being aware of the language that you use. I think for some of us, we have so many different meetings and we change the way that we talk. Sometimes we use language that's quite academic, or we shorten words and use acronyms, which I didn't realise how many we used until thinking about it. So breaking down that information for the child and simplifying it and being mindful, giving time to that child to process. So even if you say one thing to a child and they don't respond, and then you change and rephrase it slightly differently, that child is still processing the first thing you've said to them, and now they've got the second thing. So be patient and give them time. It's not because they're just not responding and ignoring you, it's because they're taking their time to process what they've been told. So just be mindful about that. Differentiation as well is a key thing, making those reasonable adjustments for their work so that they can understand. And it's not just making assumptions about their learning. They can achieve more. It just takes time. Not just differentiating for lower learners as well. So it needs to be simplified. It's also about ensuring the more higher ability students get that opportunity to develop and progress. Also, as well, I'd say just having a non-judgmental approach and being aware of the stigmas that surround special needs that unfortunately today still exist. So just be aware of the language that you use working with people with special needs. So not defining someone by their learning needs. So for example, I hear all the time people say the autistic boy. Rephrase that and say the boy with autism, so they're not defined by that. And more children now with special needs are in mainstream schools. So you might come across children with Down syndrome or autism. So it's about thinking about routine is key and implementing that so that they can cope. Give them visuals as well so they understand. And our next board as well is really important to use to get children to move on from different tasks. Having an inclusive classroom is not just having that child with those needs sat in the classroom by themselves. Yes, that's inclusion by proximity, but it's not inclusive. Involving them as well, give them equal opportunities like their peers. So involve them in group work, which can develop their social skills as well. And when you do group work, sometimes children as well who are at lower level work well with children who have higher ability skills as well, because they can learn through that model behaviour they see. So avoid those barriers and that segregation as well. And finally as well, like, I wanted to just mention behaviours as well, because you've probably heard about challenging behaviours, or behaviours that challenge, I like to call it, because I think it just sounds slightly better. But behind a behaviour, there's always a reason. Yes, there could be something going on in the home life, but quite often it just comes down to communication and understanding. And they're behaving that way because they don't understand what's expected, or they can't tell you what's happening, as they don't know how to express themselves. So emotions can be difficult to establish of what's going on, but that's when you build that therapeutic relationship that's so important. Know your children, know who you're working with, know their likes, know their dislikes, and so you can give that person-centred approach to teaching. So yeah, good luck everyone, whatever stage of the career you're in. I'm really looking forward to being in this career as well. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jess. That was really interesting. Some great advice there on SEND. If you do have any questions, please put them in the comments and then we will pick them up in the question and answer session. Okay, the next person to speak is Krish, and Krish is a newly qualified teacher and he's going to be sharing his tips on behaviour management.
Hello everyone. So I'll be talking about behaviour. So behaviour is at the very heart of teaching and affects the children's learning and outcomes. So I am in my second year of teaching and I did my PGCE at the University of Bedfordshire. I am currently in NQT. So imagine the situation. You have 30 children in front of you, all screaming and shouting, and they're all saying, this, sir, this person did this person did that. What do you do? Do you run out of the classroom? Do you literally freeze on the spot? No, you wouldn't do that, would you? So we all know what it's like. I've been there, you've probably been there, you're a trainee, you've all literally seen these situations. So all you have to do, just stay calm and just establish your boundaries. So my tips to you, if you're a trainee teacher or even NQT just watching, is make sure you know the behaviour policy. Every school has a behaviour policy. It could be the traffic light system, it could be a warning system. Just make sure you read it and familiarise it with your mentor. In the schools that I am at, it could be a traffic light system. So red could be 5 minutes or a warning. Yellow might be 5 minutes off your golden time, and 10 minutes a child might miss their whole golden time. You don't know. Don't be afraid to ask for help as a trainee. Your mentor's there to help you, or another colleague, or another teacher. If you have a challenging child, or you have a child that's at a table which you need help with, send that child, send another child to another classroom to get that teacher to come and help you. Just because you're a trainee teacher doesn't mean that you're going to be the expert. You can help, you can ask for that help. So do not worry. Seating plans. Seating plans are going to be the most valuable thing for you. So before a lesson, if you know that there are going to be children that are going to be displaying challenging behaviour, or just behaviour that you think that they're going to be sitting on the carpet, or if you think that they might be poking their friends, put them on a table near to you, or put them on the carpet near to you, so you can keep an eye on them, or put them with a friend in mixed ability grouping, so you know that they won't mess around, or they will be engaging throughout your lesson. Another technique which I learned, which really stimulated those within behaviour management, was clapping. Clapping. So if you do, that really brings them together. So that can be a very useful tip for you. TAs are really useful. Use your TA. Your TA is a valuable asset in the classroom. Your TA is there to help you, and she or he, whoever your TA is, can sit with the child and make sure they are engaging and doing the work that you are asking. Positive praise, stickers, they're still teacher's best friend. They will be able to help you and help the child. So make sure you give clear warnings and reasons why. So an example would be, Harry, I'm giving you a warning because you are not sitting beautifully on the carpet. Make sure you're giving a reason behind the behaviour that is displayed. And just to finish off, a fantastic person to look into if you want to look into behaviour is Sue Cowley, an amazing person who I got to meet when I was at university as a trainee teacher, which I'm now an ATT. So a final quote which I said, which lives with me, is know your little people. And that's a quote. So know your little people, because without them, you can't do anything. So know your little people, Amelia.
Thank you, Chris. One of the key messages I picked up from that is don't be afraid to ask. It's really important. And I know I'm the same. Sometimes I don't like to ask, but it just helps you so much if you just build that confidence to ask what you need to.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Great tips on behaviour. Thank you. Okay, so before our first Q&A session, we've got one more presentation from Amy. So Amy is a final year trainee teacher with experience overseas and will be sharing what works for her when it comes to academic writing and assignment writing.
Hi everybody, I know academic and assignment writing is probably the worst thing to be thinking about. I've just finished my final placement and I've got a million assignments to do, so probably this has fallen at the right time. So I'm Amy, I'm 24 and I'm in my final year of trainee teacher training at Edgehill, and I'm definitely not an expert at assignment writing. I've had a few really good grades and some where I've rushed or completely missed the brief, but I've noticed that since doing 3 things, the whole process of research and writing has gotten so much easier. So the first thing, I stopped rushing and I stopped rushing to start writing, and I just focused on planning. I made sure that my planning was perfect before I even thought about writing. I used to try and write like the introduction straight away, or try and write the first 500 words to just get it out of the way and feel better. But like 9 times out of 10, it would end up being useless. I couldn't use it. So it would be a waste of time anyway. And you tend to lose a lot of cohesion if you kind of write like one section first and then leave it and then come back to it. So it's much better to just write it all in one go. And the only way you can do that is if you plan it properly. So before I even think about writing, I make sure that I know what I want to discuss, so that comes into your reading. So the first thing I do when I get my assignment question is look at the question, look at the keywords, and read all around that. And I don't mean like journal articles and really heavy reading, just light reading on the internet. Things that you wouldn't usually source because it's not academically valid, but it's put into simpler terms for you to understand. Much easier to do. So I do that first, and then I kind of build a discussion in my head, making sure that I'm answering the question. And then I kind of write points to what I want to discuss, and I make sure that's then when I would go into more deeper reading around journal articles and reports to find references for those points that I want to discuss. The next thing that I make sure that I've done is that I've got criticality. I'm sure all of your tutors, if you are a trainee, they talk about this all the time because that is how you get a higher grade. You have to be critical. And for the first 2 years, I thought this just meant contrasting perspectives and making sure you find someone who disagrees, but it's not always that. Sometimes it's questioning the source. Who is the author? Why do they think that way? Sometimes it's got to do with political. I've been writing an assignment recently on Dewey, and he was heavily like the whole Republican side and Democrats. He was very into democracy. So shove that into your assignment. They love that wide perspectives. So read around that and like make sure you're looking at your sources. The next thing is that I make sure that my paragraphs are linked. I make sure that before I start a new paragraph, I've either spoken about something that's related to it, or I say that, you know, I've noticed these 3 things and now I'm going to talk about it. So make sure that it flows. If it becomes really disjointed. And last year, a lot of my feedback from my assignments was that it was just the whole assignment was disjointed because I wasn't talking about things in an order almost. So that comes in with your planning, because if you're just writing the whole thing in sections, it's just not going to flow very nicely. And lastly, make sure that your learning outcomes are that you've ticked them throughout your assignment. So I will usually get, I have all of my stuff on Google Docs because I can access it from any device that I use. I am going to post a reel going into more detail about how I plan, because I'm very organized with tables and highlighted and all of that jazz. I love it, but it really helps. I don't just do it because it looks nice. I do it because it helps. And I'm going to post a reel of that on my Instagram, maybe tomorrow or the day after. But on there, I have all the learning outcomes and I make sure I highlight them when I've done them so that I know that they're in there, because that is a really, really easy thing to do. Like, honestly, in assignments, I've noticed if you are really like explicit with it and answer the learning outcomes, like just reword it in your assignment, because they've got no choice than to tick it off. The second thing, so that was the first, making sure that you're planning. The second thing is your sources are super, super important. So in first year, I would go to the library and I'd get like 20 books and I'd spend hours taking notes and notes on it. And this is just the biggest waste of time. I wish I could go back to myself in first year and say, put those books away, because they're good and they're very good for the initial reading when you're trying to read around the topic and get to know it. But when you get into like level 5 and level 6 assignment writing, it becomes less academically valid. One of our tutors last year mentioned that if you want higher like grades in your assignments, use more journal articles, because it's research based, it's study based, it's evidenced. Whereas if you're using books, that's basically somebody's opinion, and it's not usually, it's backed up by other people saying the same thing, but it's not backed up by study. So make sure you're using more journal articles and more reports than books in your assignments. My go-tos for journal articles, now people always recommend Google Scholar. I can't get on with Google Scholar. I don't know what it is. It's just the layout. I don't like it. I use TNF, which is Taylor and Francis. They are fantastic. Sage Publications and Science Direct. Most of them you do need to either log in. They will ask you to pay for it, but there's a thing called Shibboleth. I could be butchering that. I'm sorry, Shibboleth. You can basically log in with your uni address and you'll have access to most things. So they're definitely the go-tos. Google Scholar is good. It's just I find that I don't get on with it, and that's fine. Another great website which was introduced to me last year is the Chartered College of Teaching, and they have there's something called Impact. It's like it's like a publication of small research papers, and these are amazing because you can use them in your assignments. They're completely academically valid, and they're smaller, and they're also written less obnoxious. I wouldn't say obnoxious, academic. I don't know. You know, when you're in like a deep theorist's journal article and you just don't know what you're reading. These are a lot easier to read, and they're really short bursts, and you can use them in assignments, so they're really good. And the last tip that I would give you for assignment writing is asking yourself, so what? So this is another thing that one of our tutors told us last year in one of our assignment guidance sessions. She found that when she was reading a lot of people's assignments, she was just asking herself, so what? Like, if you make a point, you need to make your point. So there's no point just saying this person said this and this person said this. So what? So every time now that I write an assignment, I will read through it. You can do this when you're planning, but I find it's easier to do it after you've written something, because then it fits. You're not losing too much, and it doesn't take up as much time. I just tend to do it once I've written a paragraph. I'll go through it and think, so what? And I make sure that I've answered it. Obviously, you run out, and that depends on your word count, how many times you can actually say, so what? But just until you can get to a point where you're like, this is the point I'm making, and all of this above it backs up this point, basically. Obviously, that's difficult to do with a smaller word count. And the last thing was making sure that everything is backed up by reference or theory. But I found the thing that I've struggled with for my last assignments is I try to reference every single point, and one of my last feedbacks was that I had just regurgitated knowledge back at her. So making sure that you're actually putting your own voice in there as well is really important, because that's what makes it different from everybody else's. But yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, then you can either put them in the chat for the Q&A session or just message me on Instagram.
Thank you, Amy. A lot of people are posting in the comments that they're looking forward to seeing your reel on Instagram.
Oh gosh, no pressure.
No pressure. Okay, so we're going to have a question and answer session with the 4 people who have already spoken tonight. So I will pose some questions. Matthew, the first one is directed at you, I would say. So somebody has asked, have you ever known an NQT to have a subject to lead?
Yes, it was pushed upon me to do it, and I stood my ground and said no. But as I set into my RQT year, 4 days into my RQT year, I was given history and geography to lead and RE. So I think, yes, it does happen, but you have to really stand your ground and just say no. And you are well within your rights to say no, because you've got enough pressure as it is as an NQT, with getting used to how the schools work, with parents, there's so many aspects of it that you haven't had yet because you've been shielded by placement teachers. You're well within your right to just say no. But yes, it has happened.
And moving on from that, somebody also asked, can you be a subject lead in a subject that you don't have a GCSE in?
Yes, I believe you can. Yes, I think it's dependent on your subject knowledge within the curriculum at this point, because I studied my A levels but dropped out, went to college to get into university, and I've been a subject lead of, for example, RE, history, geography. I didn't study those at GCSE, so yeah, you can.
Well, thank you. Krish, somebody was asking if you could just repeat the person that you recommended on Behaviour.
Sue Cowley. She does quite a lot of behaviour books, and I don't know on top of my head, but if that person Instagrams me or Twitter messages me, I would be more than happy to send that person some recommendations. Sue Cowley.
Fab, thank you. We've had another question. This is for anyone, open to anyone. A list of CPD websites, which we do have on EdConnect, but have you got any websites or information of where you can get some CPD?
I think a big one at the moment is Place to Be are running a mental health awareness course. It's a foundation course in becoming a mental health champion. And obviously for trainees, whether you're online, whether you're managing to get into school, whether you're an early career teacher, I think mental health is going to be really huge on the curriculum this term and moving forward. So that's something I would suggest.
Thank you. Amy, do you have any questions in the comments that you've seen?
There's one here that said the small academic sources. That was Impact, and it's a publication company that's under the Chartered College of Teaching. So if you go onto the charteredcollegeofteaching.com, I think it is, at the top there's a little subsection called Impact, and they post. You just sign up, put your email in, and you can just search like you would on Google Scholar or TNF. You just search for keywords, and it will come up with lots of small little bursts of. They're just like mini journal articles, but they're just easier to read, and they won't get you marked down.
We have got a question on assignments. So this is tips for school-based training routes on finding time to write assignments.
Yeah, it is. Do you know, it's really tough, especially at the minute. I think we've been quite lucky. They've shoved all of our assignments to the end. But it means like we've got 2 due in 3 weeks, and it's been difficult. I think if you can't do 2 things at once, like I cannot do 2 assignments at once. I don't know how people do it. Magicians. Like I have to focus completely on one thing. It's just, I find honestly, I know it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but doing it in short bursts. I know that you have a lot on, but doing it in like 3-hour bursts and then coming back and just like chipping away at it. Because if you try and sit late at night, you're just not productive and you're not going to get anything done. So just like finding the time, even if it's an hour, just to like, okay, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to look at 2 journal articles today. Then that's it. And you've done that. I think people struggle with like, I've got this huge assignment to do. And they think about this huge assignment when really like, just start reading, just read 2 journal articles and make some notes on it. And then you've started just little bits, little bursts, I would say. Hope that helps.
Thank you. Jess, I don't know if you want to have a go at answering this question. I might be putting you on the spot. It says, any recommendations for a second-year trainee who has not had a placement and it has been cancelled in first year due to COVID?
I don't know, it's really hard because I guess I'm in I'm doing a school direct route, but we have had placements cancelled as well. So I think it's just about, reading up on different things, trying to increase your CPD if you can as well, because obviously there's some of us that we've not got areas that we're able to go into with different placements now, so we're just kind of making the most of our school that we're in now, but then we're doing other stuff like on YouTube. You could maybe even observe some lessons on YouTube. I think there is something that my mentor told me the other day about, so I don't know if somebody wants to drop me a message and I could probably tell you, because there is a YouTube videos of old lessons and you can search for your like the different areas that you're wanting to teach in or something, so that might give you some tips. So yeah, if you want to just drop me a message and maybe
and the last question before we go to our next speaker is, any must-have books for teacher training?
Good question.
Just has shown us one, Trainee Teachers Handbook.
Yeah, this is really good.
Another one would be Surviving My First Year of Teaching.
Great, thank you everyone. We'll move on to our next speaker now. So our next speaker is Abby, and Abby is in her final year of teacher training, and she's also one of the strategy leaders for EdConnect. She's going to be talking tonight about increasing the teacher load. So over to you, Abby.
Fab, thank you so much. I do have a PowerPoint. I'm the only one with a PowerPoint. I don't know if anyone can see it. Right, I'm hoping everyone can see it. So I'm going to be talking about increasing teaching load. So I do a 3-year course. So obviously I have a placement per year. Obviously, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see I started my Instagram from the very first day of my first year teaching degree back in 2018. Obviously now I'm in my final year. So I've been through several placements, as it said, endless planning, heaps of marking, and I would like to say they're words of wisdom, but I don't know. Well, it depends if you can call it that. But I'm going to share some of my top tips, what I wish I knew at the start of my degree. So as you can see, my first placement, I was an impaired placement, and I did struggle with that, I will admit. But I got to know the other girl very, very well, and we did a lot of joint teaching. So overall, between the two of us, we did 40% whole class teaching per week with most subjects. I didn't do anything like history or geography or things like that because that was pre-planned, etc. But I did a lot of core subjects. Obviously, going into placement 2, I was not very confident in subjects such as history or geography. However, as it says on the screen, I did all the subjects. I just got stuck in and just completely went for it. So obviously in placement 2, it was 60% whole class teaching. I was the only student in the class, a student teacher, and I absolutely loved it. I got so stuck in, and honestly had the best time. I was in a year 2 class, and then my final placement, which I am in now, I started on Monday. I teach for 80% of the time, so obviously the whole time, and I'm in a reception class, obviously not too much whole class teaching, but I do all the subjects, so obviously phonics to kinetic letters, handwriting, etc. So I'm going to share my top tips on the next screen. I don't know if I have time to talk about all of them or if you can read it, but it's quite small, but I thought I would get in a lot of tips. So the first one, ask for help. If you're so struggling with the increasing workload, because it does get difficult, then just ask for help. If you're struggling with planning or struggling with marking, then just ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. I asked for help so much for my second placement, because obviously going from a pairs placement over to a individual placement where I was by myself, I did struggle. The teachers are there to mentor you. They will not scare you. They are not there to force you out teaching. The second one, don't burn out when you've just begun. It's so important to try and establish a great work-life balance. I know that is difficult, and I will admit myself, I don't have a good work-life balance, but I will get there. And I think experience as well, like talking to the teachers at school, some of them still don't have a good work-life balance. They've been teaching for like 30 years. So definitely try and establish that and have you time as well. Don't reinvent the wheel. If you're looking for resources, worksheets, lesson plans, PowerPoints, look at places like Test and Twinkle for inspiration, and you can also download as well, because there's no point spending hours and hours and hours if someone else has already reinvented the wheel. So obviously there are hundreds of fab resources everywhere, places like Instagram, Twitter, everyone has some resources on their feed, which are fab. So, and obviously I have my test in my link on my Instagram. Then don't assign workload. So if you have a really good relationship with your TA, ask them to do the laminating or the cutting or the display you're going to do after school, whatever it is, just ask them. So I was very fortunate to have a fab TA on my second placement who was an absolute angel. She would take photos of all children's work, and before I know it, she stuck it in their books, and she was just fabulous. Ask her to do that laminating just to save you 5-10 minutes. Then find a marking buddy. If you're like me and love Anatta, then find another teacher or a student teacher to mark with. And I found that motivated me to want to mark, even though marking is, you just dread it. But also mark as you go in the lesson. This is the biggest thing I think I've learned throughout my degree and placement. It's just mark as you go, and it will save you so much time at the end. Especially you can give verbal feedback to the children directly in the lessons, so it saves you also, the children asking you so many questions after, when you might not have even realised what you've written down when you were marking at 6 o'clock at night or whatever. So also stay organised. Post-it notes are my best friend. Literally, I have like 2 boxes in my bag for placement. And then also a to-do list pad. I love a to-do list. I know I have several conversations with people on Instagram about to-do lists. They are just the one. And also it will keep you super organised and on top of your teaching load. I go to pages of my to-do list pad because it's magnetic. It's probably, I don't know, you can't see it, but it's big. And it's just fabulous, and it follows me absolutely everywhere. And then also plan collaboratively. Oh my gosh, this is also a massive tip I wish I knew, was share the workload amongst teachers and your other student teachers. Don't try and sit and do a whole module of maths in one night. Try and give it to other teachers to plan, and then you will have half your workload as well. And then also the final one, which I started to use on my last placement before Christmas, so my second year placement in year 2, was get the students to help. You will have those students that absolutely love to help you, and they will be there. Get them to hand out the sheets, get them to peer mark their other people's work with their magic pens. Just use the students to your ability to help you with that workload. Obviously, any questions, just drop me a DM on Instagram.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
I've wrote down, do not reinvent the wheel.
That's the biggest thing, I think.
I always try to think, is it really necessary to make the thing that I want if it's already out there? Do I actually need to make it? It just saves so much time. Thank you. We'll see you in the question and answer.
Thank you.
So the next speaker tonight is Portia, and Portia is a newly qualified teacher and expert in all things teacher standards.
Expert. Oh, wow. Hi, guys. Okay, so I put out a poll and I found that most people were struggling to evidence. I'm just going between two screens, so be patient with me. Most people were struggling to evidence TS6 and TS8. So I thought I'd give you all 3 main pieces of evidence that you can use for those 2 standards. So most of the examples that I'm about to give you are to be implemented when we get back into the classroom. So that's your printing out of documents. But some of them can be adapted to be used on your Google Forms and to be used online now. So for Teacher Standard 6, which is about assessment, a good piece of evidence that you can use is always your marking and the children's responses. So as soon as you're back in class and you've got those children's books in front of you, photocopy good pieces of work, photocopy children's work where you're almost having a back and forth with them in terms of your marking. Another good example, you can use statements taken from Target Tracker or the assessment tool that you use in your placement or at your school. I don't know what else is out there. I only know about Target Tracker because that's what we use. It can literally just be a screen grab of Target Tracker of some statements that you're trying to get your HAs, your MAs, your LA children, your highs, your middles, your lowers to tick off. Screen grab that, include it in your evidence bundle and talk about how you are hoping to help those children meet those standards. A really nice, easy one to do. And finally, for Teacher Standard 6, you can also get your children to give you feedback, but verbally. So that one, for example, you could, depending on how wordy it is and how long you want to type, you can type up your children's responses to you. If you're going to use Bloom's taxonomy as a form of questioning, get them to give you a response and type it up and include that into your evidence bundle. It's quite a different way of including some evidence for Teacher Standard 6, but a nice one to do. You'll also find that Teacher Standard 6 links quite heavily with TS2, which is about progress. So I guess I'd encourage everybody to just look for those links where you can, because you will find them, especially with TS6 and TS2. The other standard that came up was Teacher Standard 8. So for this one, I think if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I'm working on a law module in regards to anti-racism and teaching it across the borough. So I think if you're going to be thinking about things that you might want to work towards in your NQT year, in terms of things that are not so related to do with teaching, more like a passion that you have, thinking inclusion, thinking anti-racism, thinking SEND. If you've got examples of that, include that into your evidence bundle. That can be things like emails, correspondence between you and SLT, blanking out names, obviously being sensitive to that. It could be screen grabs of courses that you've found. So thinking about your CPD, that's a second easy piece of evidence to include. You can also link your CPD in with Teacher Standard 8B, which is about developing effective relationships with your colleagues. So anytime you're speaking to a member of staff about a piece of CPD or some development for yourself, go and research it, screen grab it, include it in your evidence bundle. Super, super easy way to evidence that one. And then lastly, contributing towards the school newsletter. So that's one that I'm working on because of the anti-racism work that I'm doing with my deputy head at my school. If there's an area that you want to talk a bit more about or find out a bit more about, ask your senior leadership team, ask your mentor if you can write a piece for the newsletter. It's a really nice way to get you to communicate with parents as well. And again, can be printed off, can be screen grabbed and included in your evidence bundle. I'm just keeping an eye on the time as well, because I'm aware that I've been talking for a while. And then just finally, it is difficult to interlink the teacher standards, but I guess I'd encourage everybody to keep that teacher standards overview with you at all times. It is my best friend. I'm always looking for those links. So try and do the same as well. That's it, really. That's all from me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to be using some of your tips this weekend to gather some evidence for my progress meeting next week. So thank
Brilliant.
you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so our next speaker is Amy. Amy is a second-year trainee teacher joining us from Dubai tonight, and we were talking earlier about how we were so jealous of you over there. And she's going to be talking about well-being.
Hi, so my name is Amy. I am in Dubai. I have been here since March of 2020, and I have been studying completely remotely since September when we started again for my second year. I am at Brighton and I'm in a 3-year degree, and I specialise in EYFS and PE. So talking about wellbeing today, PE and EYFS really link into it quite nicely, because we always think about our children's personal, social and emotional development, and wellbeing goes straight into that. The same with PE, that mental health of children and looking after their mental health. We talk so much about it, but we tend to forget about our own sometimes, which is a bit of a struggle. So you have all been doing lots and lots of listening for almost an hour now. So I thought I would take a mindfulness minute, which is something that after today you can practice whenever you like. You can do it for longer than a minute. You can do it for shorter than a minute. We'll probably do it for about 30 seconds today, just because we are quite tight on time. So if whoever wants to do it, if you close your eyes, I'll probably keep mine open just so I can see everything. And you just visualize your happy place, wherever you are your happiest, wherever you feel the calmest, wherever you feel the most grounded and most centered. If you get that visual in your head, and I'll just let you get that. And then once you're in that happy place, we're going to do a guided breathing sort of exercise. So it's just to get you back to that re-grounded, re-centered space and lower any anxiety, any nerves, get you back ready to do whatever you need to do next. So when you're ready, do a big inhale for me. And hold it here. And then deep, deep exhale. And another really big inhale. Hold it here. And we'll do one more. Holding it here. And if you want, you can keep your eyes closed while I keep talking. If you are quite happy in your happy place, I do not mind. That is going to support your well-being, so that is very good with me. So self-care for self-regulation is so important. We are so busy and life can be really stressful, especially now with COVID and life never being the same, and it's always changing. So having some self-care bits in your repertoire so that you can come back to them time and time again, knowing that you can rely on them to bring you back to your grounded, centered space, is always really nice, because that's that one little thing you can rely on when life is so changing. Things like meditation, things like our mindfulness minute, skincare, a long walk, reading a book, a cup of your favorite hot drink. I love a nice big mug, mine's probably like a soup bowl size, of tea. I sit in the bath, have some candles, watch a nice movie or a TV show, and that's my happy place. That's where I feel the most grounded, and that's what I call my self-care. I also like to do a good face mask, and I know lots of other people enjoy those things too. And Ben loves a long walk, and I think getting outside and getting that physical activity where you can, when you can, is so good for your well-being and your mental health, because that fresh air and that oxygen is so good for your brain, and again, recentering and regrounding you back to do whatever you need to do next. It's in a bit more of technical terms, it manages your stress, it manages anxiety, it makes you more productive, and it allows you to have a better self-relationship. It allows you to build that time with yourself that you don't always get because life is so busy. and you can really understand what you need and how you can give that to yourself. And it also, back to productivity, it gives you higher engagement levels, so you'll be more focused, you'll be more driven. It just gets you a little bit happier when life can be really sad currently, can be a bit down. So trying to stay positive even when it's really tricky, and by doing things such as this. And for me to leave you with something is, you can't pour from an empty cup. I always like to visualize my big soup tea mug. I can't drink out of that if it's empty. So I can't give anything to anyone else if I am not looking after myself.
Thank you, Amy. Lots of good advice and tips to take into the classroom and out of the classroom as well. Thank you. So it's me. I'm going to speak for the last 5 minutes, and I'm going to talk about Wellbeing Wednesday, which is something that we do as part of EdConnect. So every Wednesday on our EdConnect account, we have Wellbeing Wednesday, where we pose a reflective question about the previous week. And we started to do Wellbeing Wednesday to bring some positivity to the middle of the week, where we may be tired and exhausted and are looking for some positivity. It's nice to share. It's nice for you to see what you are feeling proud of or happy about for that week. And it's really nice to see what other people are proud of as well. So we share Wellbeing Wednesday on Instagram stories at the moment. So we will post the question on our account, and then you share it to your story from then and tag us so we can repost it and save it to our highlights. If you also tag some friends, they can get involved too. And we have got some new questions that started on Wednesday, and we've got a new cycle of questions that we were going to be posting. And Abby, who has already spoken, is helping me with that too. So I think we'll go to question and answer now with the last 4 speakers we've just had. Or is that everyone? Yeah, that's everyone. Just 3. Okay, the first question is open to anyone. Do you think having a teacher Instagram or Twitter or Facebook helpful to your professional development? Anyone can answer.
Do you want me to go first? I don't mind, I'll go first. I absolutely love teacher Instagram. I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely love it. I've connected with so many different people, and it's just amazing seeing everyone else's ideas as well. And I didn't even know half the CPD even existed until Instagram. I was, oh my gosh, wow. So it's accounts like Teach Power, for example. She has a whole CPD tracker where you can input everything in. And I've never found that if it wasn't for Instagram, I don't think.
Has anyone else got anything to add?
Yeah, I think Teachergram is great. I, like you, Abby, I've had so many discussions with people in my DMs. I feel like I know these people. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy. It is such a resource. So I think if you've got questions, or like we're doing now, if there's anything that you're unsure of, reach out to somebody on Instagram, because 9 times out of 10 they'll help you. There might be times where people miss things. You might miss DMs, you might miss comments, but it's amazing. It's helped my CPD, definitely. I think I was saying before, in terms of Teacher Standard 8 and deploying support staff, that was something that I wanted to work on, because I'm very much used to just doing things myself. So having an additional adult, I had to think a little bit harder about that. So by seeing people's recommendations for CPD, it made me have to think a little bit differently. Wouldn't have seen that if it wasn't for Teachergram. So yeah, really, really helpful.
Thank you. Portia, this next question is for you. So it's your advice on how to best develop children's knowledge and understanding of racism and ethnic diversity linking to your work.
Oh my goodness. Please start with books. Books. The best way. Picture books are probably best to start with, I find, because then you can kind of open up discussion. If you're trying to think, sorry, was the last part of the question about linking it to teacher standards?
No, it was linking it to your work in school. that you've
To your
been doing.
work in school? Oh, to your work in school?
Yeah.
Oh, the work that you do in school. Sorry. Okay. Right. Yeah. So start with books. Take those books and go and have discussions with members of staff, probably your middle leadership team or your senior leadership team. I mean, literally take the book to that member of staff, say to them, there's this amazing book that I found. I want to use it as an opportunity to talk to my children about diversity and inclusion and being equal. How can I do that? Take notes whilst you do it. Store those notes in your evidence bundle. There's your evidence for TSA as well. But yeah, I'd say definitely books. Books are the first starting point.
Somebody's asked, can you recommend any books?
I have a post on my page.
Oh.
There's so many books. Oh my goodness. There's tons. Like I can literally reel them off my page. I'm literally going to reel them off my page. Give me a second. Can I type a few in the chat box so that they can be shared?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a bit more useful. I'll do that just a second.
Amy, this question's for you. How can you keep a work-life balance, and how do you manage your workload and self-care?
So I think fortunately enough for me, I have time zone in my favour. So my uni day only starts at lunchtime. So I have a whole morning to do whatever I want. But in normal day-to-day runnings, I think working around whatever schedule you have to stick to, and then finding those gaps, even if it is a minute, if it's 30 seconds or it's 5 minutes, using that time for your life and what you need to do for yourself and the people around you. And making sure that you carve out that time if it is a struggle. Put that time in your calendar for whatever it needs to be. So if you need to go have dinner with friends when COVID is over, if you need to have a Zoom with your family, put that in your diary, put that in your calendar, pop it on your phone so you know that that time is there and nothing can overtake that time.
Thank you. I hope that answers that person's question. Abby has got a message about how to use AFL in the classroom. So if anyone's got any tips on that, share them.
Yeah, I just received it in my DMs, so I thought I'd just mention it. I mean, on my second placement, we had literally like a form, must have been about this big, and when the children were doing things like P for C or circle time or guided reading, and they were verbally saying things, me or TA or the teacher would scribble it down exactly word for word what they have said, and then that could go in their book under the learning, objective or whatever. That was evidence that they display that knowledge, they understand what is happening, etc. So that was a fab way. And also on my Instagram page, I've done like these Bitmoji exit passes. I don't know if you've seen them. And it's like traffic system. Have you understood the task or activity? Have you not? You need a bit more help, or I really don't understand. And that's a fab way to end a lesson as well for assessment.
I use whiteboards all the time, getting the children to just, if they're doing a practice example on the whiteboard and just showing it to you, it just reveals any misconceptions and any children who needs support. And AFL will be covered in our preparing for teacher training event in June too. Have we got any more questions coming through? I'll just give it a second for some to come through. I also forgot to say in the last question and answer that we do have some Instagram lives coming up in May around leadership. So those are for those questions at the start of the event. I think that's it for questions.
I've just found one quickly. Someone said about a CPD tracker, which I mentioned. If you head over to my Instagram, I have a highlight on CPD and I like talk it through, and the tracker is also on there if you want to have a look.
There you go. Thank you. Waiting for the slides to come back up. Okay, so the next steps after the event, you should have received a survey in the email, so we would like you to please fill it in because it helps us to know what we can do to make our events better and what you would like from us at EdConnect. We'd really like it if you could share your thoughts on social media using hashtag EdConnect, and then we can share them and see what you think. And if you do have any questions, you can email us or DM one of our social accounts. On the next slide, we also have some information on network leaders, which we are still looking for. This is to be involved in sort of managing and leading a part of our network. There is some information on the slide, but it is on our website. And if you need the link to our website, you can DM us and we will send you the link. So sign up as a member to get all of the details regarding our next events and the support that we offer. I think there has been a link posted in the chat to the form to sign up. You can volunteer as a network leader, as I've just said. You can write blogs for our website, anything education based, we'd be happy to publish. And you can follow us on our social media and share your successes. Get involved with Wellbeing Wednesday, which I've already talked about. And we have also started a new Tagging Tuesday, which more will be revealed very soon. Okay, so we're just going to mention this. It is the Diverse Educators Organisation, and it connects organisations working on diversity. So they've asked us to share that they are running a free event on the 10th of April with a focus on early career teachers and diversity. And they're also looking for people to write their own blogs. And if you get in touch with us, we will pass them on to them and they can publish them for you. So here are our next future events. So in May, we've got Stepping Up to Leadership. In June is Preparing for Teacher Training. And then we have had a request for some Instagram lives, which we are planning at the moment. So the first one is being live as an NQT in 2020 to 2021 on Thursday, the 25th of March at 7 p.m. on our account. Just last message is thank you to all the people that have presented tonight, and thank you all for coming to watch. We hope it's been really useful and that you join us for some other events later on in the year.